Languages and Civilizations from the University of Chicago. I just asked her what her dissertation was on, and she said on Hanuman, which will become a book next year, so we're all curious. She's published translations of Ramayana and Kathasaritsagara. She also published a book last year, which I have with me here, Lost Loves, exploring Rama's anguish. And she's also co-edited a book called The Best of the Quest. The Quest was a literary/intellectual magazine being published from Bombay in the 50s. So Arshia's talk today is reading Ramayana in the 21st century without wasting any more time.
I have to.
Sorry, that wasn't a waste of time, sorry.
I have to forward her, or do I have to spent 30 years of my life with Ramayana, with Valmiki Ramayana. It's the longest relationship in my life outside my marriage. And it's an equally complex relationship. For those of you who've been in long relationships, or those of you who have been married, you know that there are days where you love this thing or this person, and there are other days where you hate it, and mostly it confounds you, but it's very difficult to actually extricate yourself from Ramayana. I use Ramayana very generally, but in fact for myself, Ramayana is only Valmiki. That's the text that I've worked with most. That's the text that I'm most familiar with. And it's also the text that most Indians are least familiar with. Everybody knows Ramayana?
Yeah.
Yeah? Everybody. How do we know Ramayana?
Through translations.
Through translations.
My grandmother told me.
Grandmother?
Through TV series.
Absolutely. Through television series, whatever.
I've read.
Yeah, Tulsi, good. Movies? What about what's his name, Ravan? How many people saw Mani Ratnam's Ravan? Okay, everybody saw that. Was that Ramayana?
No.
No. Why was it not Ramayana?
So much of speak rather than the poetry. Actually, Valmiki Ramayana is the poetry.
Very well said. There wasn't enough poetry, there was too much action. Yeah? Too much violence. Yeah? But what is the story? The story of the Ramayana? There is a man who upholds dharma. In the case of the Mani Ratnam film, I only saw the Hindi version, which had its own problems with Akshay Bachchan and all that. I'm sure some of you remember. So there is a man called Dev. He upholds dharma. He's a police officer. Dharma is represented by the state. The state of the nation in India represents dharma. Dev, because he's a police officer, he's an upholder of dharma. He has a beautiful wife. She gets kidnapped by an outsider who is a threat to the state, but is a hero to his own people. She lives with him for 14 days, a very important number. At the end of it, she begins to feel sympathetic towards him. She comes back to her godlike husband who rejects her. Is that Ramayana?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So we have some sense of what Ramayana is. Also very interesting that a couple of people said that they've read Ramayana, because mostly I think what happens to us in India, and I think perhaps your generation of students, none of us read Ramayana. We already know it. Yeah? Our grandmothers have told us, we've heard it on TV, we understand its metaphors. Yeah? Everybody knows the phrase Lakshman Rekha. What is Lakshman Rekha?
Instead of Lakshman Rekha is not there in Ramayana.
Sorry?
Lakshman Rekha is not there in Ramayana.
You are a genius. So the only person who has said that to me instead of me saying it to somebody else. Lakshman Rekha is very, very late. Yeah? And very interesting that we assume that it's in the Ramayana. And what is the Lakshman Rekha? It's a way to contain the activities of women. It's a way to contain the sphere of women's actions. Yeah? We place them inside an environment and we say it's for your own good. Yeah? But do not believe it's for our own good. Yeah? It is a profoundly sexist metaphor. But we all understand it. That comes from Ramayana. How many times have we used the phrase, "Arey, puri Ramayana sun ke puchhiyo Sita kaun hai?" After listening to the whole Ramayana, you're asking me who is Sita. Yeah? So our cultural metaphors are based in this text. There's a lovely one that I heard recently for the first time from somebody else who said, in Eastern UP, they have a saying, don't marry your daughters to those Ayodhya fellows. Look how badly they treat their wives. Yeah? Nobody has to explain this to anybody in India. Everybody knows what we're talking about. And the lovely thing about Ramayana, because it is such a tradition and it is such a rich tradition, and it is such a diverse tradition. Every single one of our vernacular languages, our regional languages, our state languages has a Ramayana in it, yeah? And not only is it a Ramayana, but it is usually the most beautiful literary expression of our language. Yeah? There is nothing more beautiful in Tamil. Well, there's almost nothing more beautiful in Tamil than Iramavataram, Kamban's text. Yeah? Krittivasa in Bengali, Ramcharitmanas in medieval Hindi. Yeah? These are literary epitomes as much as they are the retellings of a great story. But anyway, the one story that I wanted to tell you about how we know Ramayana, but Ramayana also knows Ramayana. Yeah, Ramanujan quotes a wonderful incident from the Adhyatmya Ramayana, which is a late text. It's a 16th century Sanskrit text, but it comes from the region that now speaks Malayalam. And you know, the moment where Rama has to leave and he goes to say goodbye to everybody. And he goes also, and last, to say goodbye to his lovely wife Sita. And she says, but why are you leaving me? He says, no, I have to go to the forest. The forest is not for women. It is particularly not for a gentle princess like you. You know, the forest is so dangerous. When you hear waterfalls in the forest, they sound like lions roaring. There are mosquitoes, there are scorpions. It's not a place for you, dear and gentle Sita. And she says, no, I want to come. And she gives him many arguments. She says, how can I stay here with my mother-in-law? That's not nice of you to leave me for 14 years with my mother-in-law. I'm not staying here. Really, this is why we should read Ramayana, because it's very funny. And she says, I'm not scared of the forest, so what? And you will be there. No. And he keeps saying, no. And finally she says, Rama, have you ever heard of any Ramayana in which Sita does not go with Rama to which, you know, I mean, it's a lovely story. It's a lovely story because it's funny, but it really also tells us that this is a very self-conscious text. This is a text that is aware of itself, yeah? And so we must never think of it as you know, it just came. It didn't just come. This is a text, this is a story that we want to tell over and over again, whoever we are. Unfortunately, what has happened over the centuries is that the Ramayanas that have been preserved typically are mainstream texts. Yeah, they support, or they not support, let's say they emphasize the patriarchal nature of the text. Yeah, the text, the Ramayana stories that question the patriarchy, that question the fundamental conservatism of the text have not been recorded, have not been remembered. Women's stories, women's poems that mock Rama. You know, we've been asking questions of the Ramayana for as long as the Ramayana has actually existed. Right? But Dalit stories, Jain stories, Buddhist stories, women's stories, who knows, animal stories, monkeys' versions of the Ramayana have not been preserved with the same kind of dedication as male Ramayanas, high caste Ramayanas, elite Ramayanas have been preserved. Yeah? And you just have to scratch below the surface and you'll find all of these and more. Having said that, I work with the most conservative text of them all, the Sanskrit text. It's actually not the most conservative text. The reason that I remain fascinated with Valmiki is because I think that it's only in Valmiki, you know, that it's our first Ramayana. It's the first extant Ramayana that we have. It doesn't mean that the story was not told before. It doesn't mean that other versions of the story didn't exist. But this is the first one that we have. And it's from approximately 2,500 years ago, just about. Yeah, we put the epic period, the period of epic composition, which is also Mahabharata, between 200 BCE and 200 CE. Yeah, so before the Christian era and in the Common Era. That 400-year period is when the epics were put together, mostly in the shape in which we now have them in Sanskrit. Yeah? So because it is our earliest Ramayana, it's the only one where Rama is not sure that he is God. And we are not sure whether Rama is God. And that, for me, makes a very, very interesting dynamic. And it makes it a very compelling literary dynamic. Who is this guy? Yeah, is he God? Okay, that's fine if he is. That gives us one set of problems to deal with. Is he not God? Okay, that gives us another set of problems to deal with. But does he know? Yeah, and lots of this second book is about precisely that. Does he or does he not know? And do we or do we not know? Because if he's God, we're going to judge him in a particular way, and we're also going to think of this as a religious text. Yeah? And if he's not God, then we're going to judge him and think about him in another kind of way. And we're not going to treat this as a religious text. We can still treat it as a very important text. We can treat it as a way of life text, a text about dharma, a text about how dharma works in our lives. Yeah? A text that somehow enshrines the values of Hinduism. Yeah, and then you are free to be critical of those values. I think it's really strange when we throw our wives out of the house because some other person is gossiping about them. That's problematic for me as a woman. It may not be problematic for other people, you know, as has been proved over and over again in our country. But there are many, many, many ways to think about Ramayana. My favorite way to think about it is as a magnificent literary text. That is the way that it makes sense to me. That is the way it compels me. That's the way it allows me to talk about it. It's also the way that allows me to own the text. Yeah? I cannot own it as a religious text. That's not appealing to me. I can't hold it, I can't sort of own it as a text of dharma because it's about Rama's dharma. It's really about a male dharma. It's about how to be king. I'm neither male, nor do I have any desire to be king, nor are my sons going to be king. So, you know, kind of leaves me out a little bit. So the way that I can own the text, the way that I can feel that the text is speaking to me, the way that I can feel that I have something to say about this text is as literature. And that is, of course, just one way of thinking about Ramayana. It is not the way. It is certainly not the only way. And I think that's one of the reasons why we continue to tell Ramayana. It's a story that's 2,500 years old. It's a story about flying monkeys and 10-headed monsters. Yeah? Who believes this? And we're not saying, oh, you know, the monkey didn't really fly, he just jumped in the air. No, we're saying the monkey flew. Not to mention the monkey spoke Sanskrit. Yeah? A very good Sanskrit. In fact, one of the when he meets Rama and Lakshmana for the first time, Lakshmana doesn't say, oh, you speak Sanskrit. He says, oh, what good Sanskrit you speak, right? So even within the text, Rama and Lakshmana are, oh, okay, this is fine. In fact, nobody is surprised by Hanuman and his wonderful capacities except Sita. Yeah? When he meets her in the Ashoka Grove, she says, oh God, this is a monkey, and it speaks Sanskrit. It must be a Rakshasa in disguise. Up to that point, everyone was like, oh, okay, monkey is flying, monkey is speaking Sanskrit. Yeah? We're not saying in Ramayana that, oh, Ravana didn't have 10 heads. Yeah? And one of the things that I think, you know, if you spend as much time with Ramayana as I do, one of the things that bothers me is quite often Ravana is referred to as Dashagriva, which means 10 necks. Right? And so then I imagine this person that looks like a flower vase, you know, like all the necks are going and the heads come out like that. Sometimes he's called Dashanana, so there's one neck with 10 heads, right? But how do you divide 10 equally? If it was 11, there'd be 1 here and 5 and 5. How do you distribute the 10 heads on one neck? Yeah? So it's not like this is not 10 heads. How do the 10 heads work? Yeah? So this is what I'm saying, that even Ramayana continues to compel us as a story about kidnapped princesses and flying monkeys and 10-headed monsters and a king, a prince who is exiled unjustly and who's trying desperately to find his way back, not to his kingdom, he knows how to get to Ayodhya, but how to become king, because he has seen what happened to his father. Dasharatha was a wonderful king. He ruled for 60,000 years. He was kind, he was just. His kingdom prospered and flourished. Nobody remembers that. All they remember is that, oh my God, what a mistake he made when he was an old man because he loved his young wife too much. Yeah? Rama knows that this is how people judge kings. He has to find a way back. He has to find a way back to be king fully. Yeah? And in ways that his father was not king. Okay, so that's, I think that's a sort of, those are the things that I find interesting in a literary Ramayana. Yeah, but of course, there are many other ways to look at it. Lots of people have chosen to look at the Ramayana as history, yeah, with very, very unfortunate consequences, because when we think of the Ramayana as literal history, Rama was born, then we are compelled to say Rama was born here, yeah, and if something gets in the way of that here, we knock it over. We also decide that people who don't believe that are not Indian and not worthy of living in this country, and we made another country for them, they should all go there. Those are extremely dangerous ways, I think, to understand Ramayana, because eventually those are ways that will exclude not simply me, but all of us. Yeah? Today's me, tomorrow will be you, the next day will be somebody else. So when we speak of the Ramayana as history, what do we mean? What might we mean when we say the Ramayana is history? Or we can say it's not. I mean, why would we say this is historical?
Talks about the wars.
The wars? Which wars?
The war that Ram had
Okay, so it's not real, but he did fight a war. Yeah? Okay. Talks about the wars between.
Rama and Ravana.
Okay, and who's Rama and who's Ravana? Yeah, because now we get really uncomfortable. Because if you say Rama is, like has been read for many, many years in South India, from the 1930s onwards, that the Ramayana is the story of Aryan expansion. Yeah, south. And we don't like these Aryan people. Yeah, we are Dravidians, we are the Ravanites. Yeah, we don't need to be colonized by this northern lot. But then what do we do with the monkeys? How nice is it for us to say, oh, monkeys, they're tribal. What kind of racism is that? Yeah, so we get very, very uncomfortable if we think through our own historicizing of the Ramayana. Yeah, because it takes us into very, very uncomfortable. Of course, I mean, these are uncomfortable spaces only if you occupy a certain kind of politics. For other people, it's perfectly okay. There are tribals, are monkeys, we are this, we are that. Those people are not my friends, but they have a right to think what they think. But I think there are other ways to see the Ramayana as history. You see history through the Ramayana. Sorry?
The places that are mentioned over there,
yeah.
and Lanka and...
Yeah, you think Lanka, Sri Lanka?
Yeah. And also that's what is generally said, that they had to cross the ocean and...
Oh, then Ayodhya is Ayodhya, and Rama was born there, and there's a place called Ayodhya on our map.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So I'm saying how we can think of it as a part of history, because it mentions the names.
See, it also speaks about the society of the common man.
Of the common man?
Okay.
The Ramayana. Who's the common man? Rama is not common man.
No, not at all. The other part of it is Dhobi speaking about Sita and
Okay.
And we have Ayodhya with all those temples, and we have the Sarajam River.
Of course we do. But it's also entirely possible that these places call themselves Ayodhya and Saryu after Ramayana was written.
Of course.
Yeah, but I want to be part of Ramayana. My name is Ayodhya. My name is Sita. My name is Rama. Whatever it is. Yeah. One of the other thing that I find very, very moving about the Ramayana tradition, anywhere you go in India, you go to a village, you go to a temple, you go to they say like Sita sat here. Yeah. That spring over there, that river, Rama was thirsty, so Lakshmana shot his arrow, and the spring came out of it, right here. That's happening in Hampi, it's happening in Ayodhya, it's happening in Bengal, everywhere. Sita and Rama were everywhere. Yeah. And it's sweet, because we want to believe that they were right here. That this happened in my neighborhood. That I too am special. This is my Ramayana as well. So if we think of it like that, then we can say that, a certain town decided to call itself Ayodhya because it loved the tradition of the Ramayana. That the Shaiva, of course it's true that the Ramayana was put together, was composed by real people. It's not like the Vedas, God said. Yeah? So it's possible that the people who were composing the Ramayana or putting it together lived on the banks of a real river called the Shaiva. So the Shaiva appears in the Ramayana. And that is why we are reading history through the Ramayana. The other thing, of course, that Ramayana shows us is some kind of political organization in northern India. There were thinking of smaller kingdoms at this time. If the Ramayana was actually put together between 200 BCE and 200 CE, and there's all kinds of linguistic evidence to support that, then there's been only one empire. Yeah? There's only been the Mauryan Empire up to this point. We haven't yet reached the age of imperium. Also, in terms of literary output, what was happening at this time is that the very, very last of the Upanishads were being composed, right? This is also relatively soon after the birth and death of the historical Buddha. and historical Mahaviras. So Buddhist and Jain ideas are running around. The Upanishads are being composed. Vedism is sort of on the decline, right? And one of the things we notice in the Upanishads, first time, because what we have before that is Veda, but what we notice is that many of the answers of the many questions in the Ramayana, in the Upanishads, are provided by women. Gargi, Maitreyi, and many of them are provided by kings, by Kshatriya kings. The Buddha himself was born into a Kshatriya family. He was a prince before he became a sage. So what we're also noticing at this point, or we're surmising at this point, is that there is a shift from Brahmin power, which is exemplified by the Vedas, the Brahmanas, the Aranyakas, to this more contemplative power that is represented by the Upanishads. The shift from Brahmin intelligences and Brahmin elitism to Kshatriya intelligences and Kshatriya elitism. So the grand narratives of the epics actually occupy the same compositional space as the Upanishads, which are very quietistic, and you have to sit and look at your neighbors and meditate, and then you see two birds in the tree, and one bird is eating the fruit, and you know the story, and the other bird is watching the bird eat the fruit, blah blah blah. And we have that same binary, I think, within the Ramayana, because Rama has to be king. He's a Kshatriya. He has a Kshatriya destiny ahead of him. But he goes into the forest for 14 years, and what he experiences in the forest is not a Kshatriya way of life at all. He's with the sages. He's visiting all the sages in their ashrams. He's seeing how they live. He's seeing the quietness and the non-violence of their lives. And while he's in the forest, Rama, well, actually before he's in the forest, in one of the very heated exchanges that he has with Lakshmana in Ayodhya before he leaves, is he said, I renounce Kshatriya dharma. It is base, it is for the greedy, and it is for the violent. And he goes into the forest and he renounces Kshatriya dharma again in a very public moment when Bharata comes, comes to Nandiraman, take your kingdom, and Rama's like, no, you take, right? And there's this whole, in front of all the rishis, Vasishtha, Jabali, all the court advisors to Dasharatha, again Rama says, I reject the dharma of a Kshatriya because it is violent. Later, when they're in the forest, Sita says to him, don't carry weapons. If you carry weapons, you will bring violence to you. You will draw violence to yourself. And Rama says, well, nonsense, I have to carry weapons because I have to protect everybody, I have to protect the weak. And she says, but what if by mistake you hurt somebody who has no enmity with you? And as soon as she says that, the next thing that happens is he mutilates, along with Lakshmana, he mutilates Shurpanakha, which of course sets off this whole, basically sets the plot in motion. And it can only have one ending, which is the war, the Great War. Anyway, so that I think is one way that we can use the Ramayana to understand the historical moment. Not in terms of metaphors, certainly not in terms of actual facts, but what the Ramayana shows us about how people lived becomes a lens that we can use to look at other documents from the same time, other more historical documents, inscriptions, the kind of stuff that my friend Rodney works on, court records, if there are any from that period. Okay, so that's another way to think about the Ramayana as history. Are there any questions or comments? Well, I'm just rattling along. In terms of placing the Ramayana in more universal categories, how do we think about the Ramayana? It's very common for us to say that the Ramayana is an epic. Everybody knows what an epic is? What is it? Oh, come on, everybody says, oh, that's an epic film. Oh, what is an epic?
It's a blank poetry.
Sorry?
Sublime poetry.
It's a blank poem. Sublime. Okay, sublime poetry, alright. Is it long or short?
Long.
Very long. Then what else? Now we're getting warmer. Remember that game, hot and cold? Okay. So it's a poem. It's very good poetry. It's long. What else? Sorry?
Many
Many characters. Typically, what is an epic about?
War.
Heroic deed.
Sorry?
Heroic deed of
Absolutely. Heroes,
Protagonist.
heroic deeds, wars, yeah, and of course, epics, wherever the epics, whether they are Greek epics or Norse sagas or Iranian Shahnameh or our epics, they're always placed in the warrior class. Yeah? You're not going to get an epic about a common man. You're certainly not going to get an epic about a woman. Yeah? It is about kings and kingship and wars and learning what it means to be a warrior, fighting your big enemy, coming back to
No, in fact, it's not, you can't say like that.
Okay.
Because every epic must have, all Navrasas consist in that epic. Not only warriors, there must be Vatsalya rasa also, there must be...
Absolutely. But it's
every 9 rasas, Sringar rasa, every rasa.
But the story will still be the story of a
Story
warrior.
must be, because every story must have some hero.
And of course, no chance that a woman could be a hero, right? Yeah. No chance that a woman could be a hero. Okay.
In Ramayana,
Sorry?
Yes. Major emphasis are relationships.
Yes. But again, very much within a warrior universe. No, we're not interested in the relationship that a Brahmin has with his wife, or a Rakshasa has with his wife, or a monkey has with his wife. But it is within the human realm of a Kshatriya. Rama is a prince, and he has to learn how to understand his father, how to understand his brothers, how to understand his subjects. Yeah? Of course the Ramayana is about relationships. But you can't tell me it's not about a war. Right? It's kind of weird.
It's how I interpret.
Okay, so you think the Ramayana is not about a war?
No.
Okay. It is also about relationships. Yeah? Okay. So, of course, we cannot have a woman as a hero, so it has to be male. Ramayana is about a war, but it happens to also be about relationships. What other things can we say?
Majorly about relationships because as we go ahead in what we know as Ramayana, you see every angle is based on some or the other kind of relation. So, I mean, every next step, like if we talk about the first brutal act that Ram and Lakshman did about cutting the nose of Shurpanakha, it was again to protect Lakshman and Sita. I'm sorry. So again, it was a husband and a wife relationship that comes into picture.
Okay.
So I feel Ramayana moves ahead. I mean, of course, there's war component in that. It moves
But it moves
ahead
ahead on the basis of
relationship.
Okay, fair enough. So let us talk about those relationships. Yeah? As we just get started, who is Rama?
I mean, again, as you said, okay.
He's not a bad guy human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless there's some but I'm going to take my chances and say, no, I think we're all commoners. So this is a prince, and it's precisely that. It is precisely his family relationships and the constellation of relationships that he has to live in that causes Rama's biggest problem, because he also has to be king. Yeah? We think of dharma as being the basis of the Mahabharata. And we think that dharma in the Ramayana is easy. Everybody knows what to do. The problem in the Ramayana is everybody knows what to do. They do it, and then it goes horribly, horribly wrong. Yeah? Now, Rama's personal dharma is impacted on by the fact that he has a Kshatriya dharma, that he has a Raja dharma as well. All of us, when we exist in a universal dharma, and I imagine that many of us do, at any given time in our lives, we have multiple dharmas that we need to enact, precisely because within a Hindu universe, the individual is not an individual, the individual is actually relational. Yeah? I'm never Arshia on my own. I'm Arshia a daughter, Arshia a wife, Arshia a friend, Arshia a teacher. Yeah? And at every single point, I have to make a choice about which dharma I'm going to acknowledge. Yeah? Like this afternoon, my dharma is that of a teacher. If I had, woken up in the morning, oh, I have a hangover, I can't go, I would be violating my dharma as a teacher. I would be violating my dharma as a guest. Yeah, I would be completely violating my relationship with Chandan, who has invited me here. Yeah, but this is my dharma for the next 3 hours. When I go home, I'm going to be myself again. I'm not a king. And I already have so many problems. Now imagine Rama, multiply this 100 times. Why does he reject Sita? What is he acknowledging? Which dharma is he acknowledging when he rejects Sita? He's acknowledging his kingly dharma. Yeah, because the king's wife must be above suspicion. You cannot have even the lowliest dhobi saying bad things about the queen, however true or untrue they may be. Yeah? Okay? So he gives up his dharma as a husband, which is to stand by his wife, against all odds. Yeah? And he accepts his dharma as a king with very, very frightful consequences for Sita. And of course eventually for himself, because he loses his best beloved. Forever she goes away. Because he had chosen to acknowledge his dharma as a king and not his dharma as a husband. So of course it's about relationships. Yeah? But those relationships are impacted by who you are in society. Yeah? You have to hand up.
Yeah. When we are talking about Ram's dharma as a king, isn't a king's dharma also to take decision based on the understanding what is right and what is wrong? You simply can't take a decision about anyone, even if that person is your wife or someone else, based on just a person's whims and wishes.
Okay,
Because just because he said something without having a proof attached to it, he took a decision and he simply asked his wife to leave.
So you think he was wrong?
Yeah, of course he did wrong.
I'm sure there are people who think he was right. Think of Dasharatha. Dasharatha had a similar problem, but he made the opposite decision. Yeah? He chose to say to Kaikeyi, yes, here we are in the innermost part of the palace. Yeah, they are in the Upagruha. Yeah, which is where women go to be angry. Yeah, make a face. We should all have one. She opens her hair, she lies on the ground, all the way, what is happening, what is happening. So he chooses his dharma as a husband. He had promised his wife that he would give her 2 boons. He would give her whatever she wanted when she asked for it. Now, as a king in this case, he had a responsibility towards his people. He had a responsibility towards his kingdom. He had a responsibility towards his son, his eldest son, who should have been king. Not only because he was the eldest son, not only because everybody loved him, but because he was the most suited to be king. Dasharatha chooses his private dharma over his public dharma, and we're all critical of Dasharatha too. Well, some of us are. Yeah? Now poor Rama does the other thing. He says, no, I'm not going to do what my father did. I'm not going to choose my private dharma. I'm going to do what is right for the kingdom. I'm going to banish my wife. Yeah? There's no winning. There just is no winning. Yeah? What do you think are the other problems of dharma within the Ramayana? Who else faces problems of dharma?
Ravana does.
Sorry?
Ravana does.
Ravana does. Tell us how.
I mean, he could have had his will with Sita, but he doesn't. He wants her to agree to.
Yeah. That's quite something.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
that he
quite
makes
something.
himself happy. Okay, let us talk about Rakshasa dharma. Who is a good Rakshasa?
No, Vibhishana.
Vibhishana is a good Rakshasa. What do Rakshasas do? Just like we have dharma, we have human dharma that Rama exemplifies. So the monkeys have dharma, which is exemplified. Remember Vali and Sugriva? Yeah? Who's the good guy? Sugriva is a good guy?
Not necessarily.
Ravana becomes the king. Remember how Sugriva became king?
Yeah.
Vali is the eldest son. He's a good king. Yeah, he's ruling a very happy kingdom. A monster comes to fight with him. He goes out to fight with the monster. It's a terrible battle that goes on forever. Sugriva is his younger brother. He's watching the fight. And this fight goes on, and the monster runs into a cave. Vali chases him. Sugriva waits outside the cave for months. He hears this terrible scream. This river of blood comes out of the cave. What does Sugriva do? He puts a boulder against the cave and says, oh my God, Vali is dead, the monster will come out. And goes back and rules the kingdom. Takes over his brother's wife. Yeah? Okay, what monkeys do? Vali is not dead, he comes back and he says to Sugriva, how dare you? How dare you take my place while I'm still alive? How dare you take my wife while I'm still alive? And he throws Sugriva out. Sugriva has to go live on Rishamukha mountain and wait to meet Rama and Lakshmana to get his kingdom back. Okay? So there is a sense of monkey dharma. There's also a sense of Rakshasa dharma. Yeah? Rakshasas are allowed to kidnap the wives of others, the women of others, among many other things that they're allowed to do, right? And we know that, okay, so there's Kumbhakarna that we get to know somewhat, Ravana, of course, we get to know rather well, Vibhishana we get to know rather well, there's another brother.
And Meghna?
Meghna is Chinese. rotary, sometimes a little bit. Who is the good Rakshasa?
Meghnad is a good Rakshasa.
Meghnad is a very good Rakshasa, but we have to kill him because he's on the wrong side. Who else is a good Rakshasa? Is Ravana a good Rakshasa?
To a certain extent.
He's a great king. People love him. Yeah? He also did the right thing. I mean, by Rakshasa rules, he took another man's husband. What's the problem? Yeah? You know, some people pray like this, some people pray like that. Some people are vegetarian, some people are not vegetarian, some people, you know, I mean, there are different ways to live in the world. Ravana lives a Rakshasa way. So why do we think what does Vibhishana do? He betrays his brother. And what does he get as a prize? He gets the kingdom. Yeah? This is the good guy?
Like Sugriva.
Like Sugriva. Yeah? But everybody has a different way of doing it. Also, I mean, I think that what we're also talking about as we're discussing Dharma and multiple Dharmas is we're also talking about the idea of kingship. Yeah? Look at what happens in the human world. Yeah? Rama is exiled for no fault of his own. His father made some silly promise to some silly woman and suddenly got, you know, sort of swayed by a hunchback maidservant. And you know, for something that Rama had nothing to do with, he is sent into exile in the forest, right? He has 3 brothers. Do they say, oh, very good? No. His brother says, this is terrible, Rama. I'm not going to accept this. Please take the kingdom back. Rama says, no. I have to listen to my father. Bharata says, okay, I will rule in your name. Yeah, I will take your sandals back to... In fact, he doesn't even go back to Ayodhya. He rules from Nandigram, right? He says, I will not step foot into the city as long as you are in exile. And of course, when Rama comes back, after 14 years, the kingdom is handed back to him. Hara, Bhara, Phata, Phula, more prosperous, more flourishing than ever. Yeah? In the monkey world, it's like, no. If you're fighting over the kingdom, you lock your brother into the cave. When the brother gets out, you exile your other brother and he never comes back. What does the exiled brother do? He has you killed by another guy who doesn't have a problem with you and then gets the kingdom. And in the Rakshasa world, you just betray your brother and you get rewarded for that. Yeah? So whatever else that Ramayana is talking about, whether it is a book about war or whether it is a book about relationships, it is also a book about kingship. Yeah? Who has the right to be king? Yeah? And not simply the right to be king as who is the rightful king, but who is the righteous king. Who is the man or the Rakshasa or the monkey who has learned how to be a king. And the point, I think, of the epic narrative is that Rama will go away, the hero who has to be a man, will go away, he will leave what is familiar to him. He will wander through unknown lands, he will meet enormous challenges, he will have a battle, but when he comes back, he's not the guy that left. He has come back suited to be king. Now, unfortunately, for women, the king that Rama has learned to be is the king that rejects his wife. That's kind of hard for me. And perhaps for some of us, maybe not so hard for others of us. Yeah? Okay. It's just after 4. I have one more thing to say, and then we can have more questions.
Why don't you utilize Ramayana as a love story?
I was just going to say that. You are a double genius. First you say. I was just about to say that as I've grown older with this text, I have begun to see it more and more as a love story. And a very tragic love story. A love story.
And furthermore, what is interested, I have read about Ramayana personally, and what is interesting to me, the jealousy shown by Rama when Sita was brought back from Lanka, before all the words he speaks. Now, if what I could have done as a worker, Kshatriya warrior, I have done. Now you go to somebody, You
Shall I read that part? I'll read it.
That's a very beautiful piece in Ramayana.
Yeah. So, the war is over, even though it's not a story about war. The war is over. Ravana has been killed. Sita, as you know, we don't know how long she was in the Ashokavana. We know that it's at least 1 year, because Rama has to wait for one monsoon to finish before he can start the search for Sita. We say, oh, Sita, they were in the forest for 14 years, oh, Sita was captive for... We don't know that. We don't know whether Ravana kidnapped her the first 6 months of their forest exile or the last year of their forest exile. But what we do know is for Sita, the wait was endless. Excuse me, she had nothing to do. Yeah, she was just sitting there and thinking about Rama and hoping and praying that he would rescue her before Ravana either eats her up, as he keeps threatening to do, as a good Rakshasa, he is allowed to do that, or attacks her. Yeah? Rama, on the other hand, has been really busy in that time. He's had to find these allies, this monkey army, he's had to walk all the way to wherever this place is, he's had to build a bridge, yeah? So Sita has been waiting and waiting and waiting for this man to come and rescue her. She hears the good news, the battle has been won, Ravana has been killed, and she thinks that Rama wants to see her, yeah? She certainly wants to see Rama. What she doesn't expect is that Rama is going to say to Vibhishana, bring her out, yeah? I'm not going to the Ashokamana to see her, bring her out. Let her see me surrounded by my friends. Let her see me as the Kshatriya that I have become. So he says to Vibhishana, why are you going against my wishes and treating these people so harshly? Stop it. These are my people. A woman's behavior is what protects her modesty. Not a home, nor fine clothes, nor high walls, or honors such as these. Women can be seen in public in times of calamities and emergencies, in times of war, at their own weddings, and at religious rituals. A war has just been fought on Sita's account. She faces a crisis in her life. There is nothing wrong if she is seen in public, especially in my presence. Bring Sita here quickly, Vibhishana. Let her see me, surrounded by all my friends. So poor Sita comes out, and he says to her, I have killed the enemy, my dear, and I have won you back. In doing so, I have displayed the courage expected of me. I have avenged the insult, and it no longer bothers me. I have destroyed the enemy and the disgrace together. I have displayed my prowess and achieved my goals. I have kept my promises. Now I am free. You were carried off by a restless Rakshasa while you were alone with no one to protect you. I, a mere mortal, have redressed that wrong decreed by fate. I have done my duty by rescuing you from the enemy and avenging the insult to myself. You should know that this war, which was won by the heroic efforts of my friends, was not fought for your sake. I did it to vindicate my honor and to save my noble family from disgrace. I have terrible suspicions about your character, Sita. The sight of you is as painful to me as a lamp to a man with diseased eyes. You are free to go wherever you want. The world is open to you. I have no more use for you, Sita. How can a man born into a noble family lovingly take back a woman who has lived in the house of a strange man? I am proud of my noble lineage. How can I take you back when Ravana has touched you and when you have lived under his lustful gaze? I do not want you anymore. You can go where you like. Go to Lakshmana or to Bharata or to anyone who pleases you. Go to Sugriva, the king of the monkeys, or to Vibhishana, the king of the Rakshasas. Go wherever you want.
Is it Arshia?
Sorry?
Who is that translator?
I am. It's the Valmiki text that is my translation. So it's pretty amazing, yeah? That this is what Rama says. The most important moment of their lives together, perhaps this reunion after a time of very painful separation, whether the separation was 7 months or 14 years, it hardly matters. This reunion, Rama asked that it be played out in public. Yeah, that it's an incredibly humiliating moment for, especially when he says, go where you want, go to whoever you want, go to the monkeys, go live with the Rakshasas. He's just taken all the trouble to rescue her from the bad Rakshasa, and now he's sending her to the good Rakshasa. Yeah, so you can imagine what Sita's going through. I mean, I can never read this passage without my hair standing up. It really makes me physically uncomfortable to read it. And I think this is the moment, which is part of this book, actually. I think this is the moment where Sita starts to lose her love for Rama because she sees that he has become a king. He has become a king who will uphold his public dharma instead of a man who will uphold his private dharma. And the argument I make in the book Lost Loves is it's because of this that she's able to go away in the end. He sends her off to the forest, she has her children there, Valmiki helps raise the children, they're all reunited in this big sacrifice. Rama's reunited with his sons, who tell him the story of his own life, right, which is Dusri too. And then suddenly he's like, whose story is this, right? Meanwhile, the boys look exactly like him. Everybody's saying, oh my God, look at those boys, they look exactly like Rama. Rama is looking at these boys who look just like him, listening to a story that he surely must recognize as his own story. Fails to do that until the point where where the boys come to the point that he banishes Sita into the forest. And then Rama says, whose story is this? And they say, it is your story. We are your sons, right? And they said, oh really? Well, why don't you ask Sita to come back, right? And he calls her back, and he asks her one more time to prove her chastity. Yeah, because the proof of chastity had been in Lanka, it had been witnessed by Rakshasas and monkeys, it had not been witnessed by the citizens of Ayodhya. He says, do it one more time, right? And it's interesting, because when she's asked to prove her chastity in Lanka, she says to Lakshmana, build me a fire. Yeah, and she walks into the fire saying, if I have been true, if I have been pure, yeah, bring me back. And of course, Agni rescues her. She comes back absolutely pure. The gods say to Rama, "What kind of silly man are you? She was always pure. How did you fail to trust her?" Yeah. When she's asked for the second time in Ayodhya to prove her chastity, she says, "If I am pure, if I have been chaste, take me away." Yeah. So she decides to leave Rama. Yeah, and we're so used to thinking, oh, poor Sita, poor Sita. No, this is a very, very strong choice. This is a very crucial choice. As a woman, it said, I refuse to participate in a marriage, in a kingdom that actually does not respect me for being a woman. So she's able to leave him because she doesn't love him anymore. Yeah, so that's my take on the love story in the Ramayana. That it's a tragic love story, not because they're separated so much, but because they lose. She certainly loses.
I perceive whatever Rama said.
Yes.
When people say Sita said, Sita may go to Pramitra, what Rama said, it's all out of jealousy.
Yeah.
Because for 1 year he has not seen his wife.
At least one.
And she comes with all adorned. He asks her to come with full jewels and everything.
Yes.
When he looks at her, all jealousy will rush into his blood and he speaks something like any jealousy man, jealous man.
Just like us. Yeah. So this is the question.
And there is also the fact of Rama going to depression when he lost Sita. So it's all a man, human nature and human jealousy, human depression, everything is there in Rama. And furthermore, if I perceive, as I perceive, for the first time in the history of the Aryans, while devils, this Rakshasas are taking away the girls, one person really fought against it and he brought his wife back.
Only one guy brought his wife back.
But that became epic. Or it could have not been epic. Probably it may be true. No, there is no recorded history of anybody fighting against Rakshasas to bring his wife back. Whether she has been taken or not, I don't think there is. But probably this act of Rama has made it an epic.
Okay.
Can
I can sort of see what I would put it a little bit differently. Very often people ask me, "Oh, is Ramayana true?" And I don't know if it's true in the sense of the sky is blue and that's a tree that I can see. But I think the Ramayana is true in the ways that you are talking about. It's true as metaphors. It's very true in terms of the kinds of emotions we have when we are at our best, and also the kinds of emotions that we have when we're at our worst, right? But every story has to come from somewhere. So I think that there was possibly, a very long time ago, there was a prince who should have been king, who was unjustly exiled by his father because there was some court intrigue, there were too many wives, yeah? This poor fellow goes into the forest with his wife, some other guy comes and kidnaps his wife, they have a great big fight, and then he brings his wife back. Yeah, and he takes over the kingdom, which his brother had kept first, maybe, right? Okay, but this is not Ramayana. This is not Ramayana. This is not an epic. It becomes Ramayana when it becomes about dharma. It becomes Ramayana when karma is an important fact. It becomes Ramayana when there is Hanuman, who we love. Yeah, who can fly and speak Sanskrit and put Lanka on fire and make us laugh and lead on. It's about the fight with Jadayu and Ravana. It is about 10-headed Ravana. It's about the bad Rakshasa, and the good Rakshasa. That is when it becomes Ramayana. And this is not true. Yeah, it is true in literary terms, but we cannot possibly believe that there was a time when monkeys flew. Yeah, even if we discover, whatever those dinosaurs are called, pterodactyls with wings, monkey faces, even then, it's not true that monkeys can fly. Yeah, and for me also, it's very important that the Ramayana not be true, because for me, what the Ramayana is, all the things that it is a magnificent literary text. It is a magnificent text of the human imagination. And I would be really sorry if this were not an imagination. It wasn't about imagination. You're like, oh, I really saw a flying monkey, so I realized, oh, the monkey flew, oh, you brought back a princess. That to me would be really boring. Yeah? Because I believe it's literature that changes us. It is literature that elevates us. It's literature that makes us better than we are. And so if we're going to reduce our literatures to history or to chronicle, yeah, I think we're doing an enormous disservice to ourselves as human beings. Okay, I think that's a very good point for me to stop talking and to now hear what that is.
When you ask me the question, who is Rama?
Yes.
One connotation is an avatar of Vishnu. Of course. Then you bring in the religious aspect, where through the Ramayana epic, Vishnu is trying to teach us about dharma and right and wrong. Then if you take that interpretation, then how does one?
Well, what is Vishnu trying to teach us? And somebody said something very interesting to me, and I've always held on to it. Because, typically, sort of like many unreconstructed feminists, I just think that, how can this possibly be right? How can God incarnate and act like this? Yeah, the killing of Bali, the mutilation of Shurpanakha, the rejection of Sita, this is not godlike behavior. Right? And then somebody said to me that her grandmother had said to her, Rama does these wrong things to show us what is wrong. What can happen to a man when he's consumed by sexual jealousy? What can happen to a man when he has irrational fears? What can happen to a man when he's desperate to get his wife back? Yeah? All the wrong things that Rama does is God showing us not what is right, but what is wrong. So that's certainly my...
And then you worship Rama.
Or something different.
Yeah, like I said, in a different form, like an avatar. You worship him and you don't consider any of his faults, or you consider him as a god.
Yes. And that, again, Rama as an avatar, Rama as the center about the universe, these are very, very late developments. Yeah? Valmiki is the only text where this is even slightly open-ended, where you can ask the question. Because, the problem with having God in a story is God is always right. Even when he's doing the wrong thing, he's right. Yeah? So you can't ask God any questions. It's a closed universe. So that's why I think I love Valmiki so much, because the universe hasn't closed yet. You can still say, Rama, what are you doing? And why are you doing it? And, he has to answer it. So, yes?
It's not exactly similar, but Homer has written the story with Helen of Troy.
Of course.
Is there some, which was written earlier first?
Approximately the same time. And that is why we're able, because these stories are so similar, that's why we can call them epics. We can create a literary genre on the basis of the fact that so many of these stories are. What is actually very interesting is that the epic is considered an Indo-European genre. Now, Indo-European is a family of languages. Yeah? But the people who speak these languages that are related, like for example, Sanskrit is related to Avestan, Avestan is related to ancient Greek, all the way up to Iceland. Yeah? Our languages share a vocabulary, they have cognate words. For example, igneous in English, which means what? Fiery. Agni, exactly. Yeah. Mother, matra, father, picker. Yeah. A lot of words match each other, and a lot of grammatical structures resemble each other. So we used to think this was just a language family, but now it turns out that these languages that are connected also share this particular way of telling a story, which is what we call the epic. Yeah? And the story is not simply told in a particular way, it's the same story. Yeah, it is a story about a war, it's about a woman who was kidnapped. But what makes our story Indian, what makes Ramayana profoundly Indian, is that it's sort of, what's the word? It's expressed in terms of dharma and karma, primarily, yeah, which are Indian concepts. I mean, Iranis don't have a concept of dharma or karma. Icelandic stories don't. Irish stories don't. They have another moral, another constellation of moral, what do you call them? Drivers, but not dharma or karma. So while the story remains similar, the Ramayana will always be an Indian story because it tells us of things that make us Indian, rather than, yeah, so long answer, very long answer. Yes?
Who has given the most sacrifice in this story?
You tell me. Who do you think gave the most sacrifice in this story? You obviously have an answer in your head, so you can. Then we can argue.
Lakshmana's wife.
Lakshmana's wife, yeah. What's her name?
That is not getting
Urmila, yeah. If we know who she is, we must know her name. Urmila does not appear in Valmiki at all. Urmila becomes very important post-Kanban, but she's very, very crucially in the Malayalam universe. Are you Malayalam?
No, it comes in Kannada Ramayana. Kannada Ramayana.
What was it at the time? Yes. Sorry, please.
Urmila is there. Very specific, and a full chapter is dedicated by our Gnanapita Awardi poem in this Ramayana Darshanam. Ramayana Darshanam, that's a very tasty. But Urmila's name comes when the time of marriage of all the four princes, Shrutakirti, Urmila, everything they come in Ramayana.
And in the Telugu tradition, there's a very, very beautiful story where Lakshmana takes a vow that he will not sleep for 14 years. Yeah? Because he's going to watch over these people so carefully. And all that sleep that Lakshmana sends away from himself visits Urmila. So she sleeps for 14 years. So she doesn't eat. Right? And when they come back, of course, he falls straight because he was like, what is it? I didn't even know about it. I'm sorry, I was kept for 14 years. Marriages again.
In Telugu, the beautiful stories about the woman sleep.
Yeah.
It's attaching to dharma and daily rituals, and what the food way is taking, what the lifestyle is taking, and what they can sleep. Attached to that.
Yes, it is. And that's lovely. Again, it's that idea that this is my story. This happened right here. Urmila is like me. Or, she wears the same clothes as I do. They have the same rituals. The Bengali is saying it, the Malayali is saying it, the Odia is saying it, the Gujarati is saying it. How can Urmila be all these people? Only because she belongs in the Ramayana. That's the only way she can belong to all of us simultaneously. Yeah? Okay, so now you think Urmila is the one who made the greatest sacrifice in the Ramayana. Who has a different idea of who made the
I would say Urmila did the sacrifice from the beginning itself, because she is the real Janaki. She is the only one, she is the real daughter of Janaka, and Sita was found somewhere. And Sita gets that stay, this one because of her love and her charm and everything. She has already sacrificed the name of Janaki to the Janaki.
Oh, very lovely. She gives up her real name to yeah, very nice.
Yeah. So she is a sacrificing person also.
Do we like her for that? Do we like her for being a sacrificing person, or do we feel like saying, don't let this happen to you?
Certainly not.
Okay, who else thinks that somebody else made a great sacrifice? Okay, who's your favorite person in Ramayana? Hanuman. Why?
Why not?
That's not an answer. Why is it?
It is Bharata.
Sorry?
It is Bharata.
Bharata? Okay, why is it Bharata?
Because the Valmiki as a part of storytelling, he creates two contrasts on Vibhishana and Sugriva. And here is a person, after 14 years, he had to have this one. And you should read that portion when Rama returns back. He is sitting and he just lands at Guha's place. He won't straight away enter into Ayodhya. And he will ask Amma, go and tell Bharata that I have come with 2 armies together. And observe his face. What will be his expression? And then come and tell me. But he will pass all the tests, Bharata. Bharata will pass all the tests, and as a noble man, a very great noble soul, he hands over the back to her. That's the greatness of
Bharata is really the moral center of the Ramayana. Hanuman is the character that we love, and it reminds us what it is to be a child. Yes.
How about Ravan? I mean,
he
he was one of the most intelligent man. Though he was a Brahmin, I think he was a Brahmin by nature because he was born in a Brahmin family and was considered to be the biggest bhakt of Lord Shiva. Pretty powerful,
Great musician,
king. He managed to run his kingdom till the last breath. He fought for it, though he lost. That does not make a difference. He fulfilled his dharma also. Even though we call him a Rakshasa, he still did not do what he feels was not morally right.
Yeah, he stayed within his dharma for sure. So why does Rama have to die? He's a good guy. Is the rest supposed to put on weight?
See, that's what Ramayana does not have all the things rightly placed.
The wrong guy.
And then Ram can rule the kingdom in spite of not doing things right or doing things wrong. Then Ravan can die in spite of doing things.
The next person.
I heard or read somewhere that Ravana wanted to be killed by Ram, so he abducted Sita and did all.
But that's once we enter the Bhakti Yug. If he's killed by Rama, you get moksha. Bali also says,
And he didn't see Sita and he didn't touch.
Yes, of course. In fact, also, as even in Brahman, he doesn't touch Sita when he abducts her. He picks up the earth around her and carries it on. In Tulsi, it becomes even more complex. The moment Ravana appears, the real Sita is replaced by a Chaya Sita. Right? So Sita is never contaminated even by his presence. Right? And then when there's the Agni Pariksha, the gods restore they take away the Chaya Sita and they restore the real.
Kathasaritsagara writes a book.
Yes, he does. Now, this is all very strange.
I couldn't understand all of it.
I don't know. You need to think God is not perfect. Yeah, that's why I put that he couldn't quite understand. He also had a limited intelligence. A different kind of intelligence, perhaps.
Not a question.
Of course.
Something about Rama's anguish, which we explored in the new book.
Yeah. Lost loves. Well, there are 2 or 3 things that I think one of the things that sort of makes him really uncomfortable is what his father did. Yeah? That whatever however great Dasharatha was, what everybody's going to remember him for is this really silly mistake. Yeah? Or this silly mistake, this error of judgment, this moment where he had a choice and he made the wrong choice. Yeah? He succumbed to he succumbed to what Kaikeyi wanted. Now, why did he loved Kaikeyi? Kaushalya is a political marriage. Yeah? There is nothing between Dasharatha and Kaushalya. She is the consort. She is the official wife. Sumitra, she's mentioned twice. Yeah? In fact, the reason you are even reminded that somebody called Sumitra exists is because Lakshmana very often in the Sanskrit text is addressed as Saumitra, right? Or referred to as Saumitra, which is son of Sumitra. Right? So you say, oh, okay. Kaikeyi is the wife that has Dasharatha's heart. Yeah? She's young, she's lovely. She makes him feel young. He's unable to deny her what she wants. And in fact, when she's lying like Papa, he says, what can I do? Shall I punish an innocent man? Shall I let a guilty man go free? This is the upholder of Dharma, the mighty Dasharatha, who in front of his wife says, I will make these terrible mistakes if you will only smile at me. Yeah? So I think Rama's very troubled by that. He never wants. He realizes also that this his father's relationship with Kaikeyi has destroyed his life, Rama's life. He is sitting pretty, he's going to be king, and then suddenly something, and boom, he's out. 40 years with his wife, right? With no real anticipation that he would get the kingdom back. Who knew that Bharata was going to be so noble, right? And Rama assumed that, Kaikeyi has done this for Bharata. Obviously, Bharata's in. He's involved in the same plan, in this conspiracy. So Rama goes out with no hope at all. So that's one thing that starts his anguish. And then I think what happens to him in the forest is far more devastating, because he's already started to question the idea of being a Kshatriya. He believes, I think he thinks that what his father did has the kind of implications it has because he's a Kshatriya, because he's a king. Yeah, if he'd been like a businessman or anything else, the impact wouldn't have been that enormous. The consequences would not have been that momentous. So he begins to question this idea: is it when you're a Kshatriya that you have to make such terrible choices between a public self and a private self? Does the position of a Kshatriya lend itself to a particular kind of emotional violence? So he really starts to rethink what it means. And at the same time, of course, he encounters the rishis, who live these very quiet lives. They have their wives with them. They're not interested in the world. They spend their time, I don't know, reading books, doing crosswords, whatever it is that kids do. He finds that really attractive because it is a life of very low impact. Yeah, you are not hurting anybody when you live a life like this. And he begins to wonder: is it possible to be a Kshatriya and live the life of a rishi? And of course, the tragedy is when his wife is taken away from him, the chance of that is also taken away. He has to go back to being a Kshatriya. He has to get his wife back. And that's when his heart breaks. Because he knows he's never going to get Sita back. He knows that when he sees her again, because he has chosen to be a king, he has to reject her. So these terrible things he says to her at that moment. Can you imagine how his heart must have broken to say that? Because he never stopped loving. But he cannot take her back, because then people say, "Dum apke baap ke jaise hai." It's just like that. There's something wrong in that family. The men make wrong decisions because they love their women too much. And there is too much at stake. Ayodhya, Kosala. Yeah? So that's his anguish, I think. And then she leaves him. And he's thinking he's left alone with his sons, who he doesn't even know. They're 14 years old. When they come back to him, what is he going to do? Lakshmana leaves him. I think Lakshmana commits suicide. He wills himself to, he puts himself in the way of a curse, which is a curse of death. And Rama is just abandoned. It's terrible. And then he makes this golden statue of his wife, which is, not only to remind, because of course, you can't be a Yajamana unless you have the female aspect with you as well. So of course he makes the golden statue so he can continue to do sacrifices. But no, he makes the golden statue so that he will never forget what he did, and so that everybody around him will never forget what he did. They will understand his sacrifice every time they see him in public with this golden statue next to him. So I think that's his anguish. But just because I told you the story doesn't mean you should read my book. Yes, you had a hand up.
I was just trying to say that about the Kaikeyi and Dashrath relationship. What I remember was that Dashrath promised Kaikeyi anything that she two wishes after the war is over, and any time in the lifespan she can demand. What Dashrath did when she demanded for an exile for Rama and kingdom for Bharat was just her personal choice. And I think what Dashrath did was his dharma, he kept his promise. And it was more of his king dharma rather than his private dharma. Because he had to make sure that his words are being valued. Though it costed him his life.
No. I differ. Because Dashrath is a very cunning king.
Okay.
Actually, Ayodhya Kanda starts with the departure of Bharata to his father, his grandfather's house. He will set off Bharata, and he will strategically want his son Rama to become coronated in the absence of Bharata. Seeing that he is a potential danger, he may do it that one. And this will make Kaikeyi really helpless, and she will throw all her weight, and she will achieve what she wanted. It's all human emotion. All the characters are very human. and they act in their full potential.
Well, Kaikeyi does too. I mean, what is wrong with what she's doing? She's acting like a good mother. She's protecting the
She's
I
acting like a
didn't
good mother.
understand what Sir said. If you can explain again.
No, Bharata, you read Ayodhya Kanda. It starts with the sending of Bharata to his grandfather's house and then planning to make him coronate Rama, and then she will become very upset. That too at the instigation of this servant. She is a childhood dadi.
Wasn't it before she said that, before she expressed her choice of sending Rama for an exile or something?
Actually, she recalls that Vara to achieve her object of getting her son to the incarnation. She is like a very good mother. She was a great warrior. She would accompany him to the warfield. Kaikeyi is such a wonder. So she is a Kshatriya. What we are doing, that we are doing injustice to Ramayana, thinking in a democratic we are not in a warfield. We are not in a warfield. We are not thinking about like a warrior, like the heroes, like the Kshatriyas. We are thinking like democratical, peaceful people who can judge anybody, anything, anyway. You sit in this place of Kaikeyi and think about it. You sit in the place of Bharata and you will know how good he is. You sit in the place of Rama, you will know what. He killed Vali because he could not ask Sugriva to go and get. Vali offered him to get his wife. But someday some fellow goes and gets his wife, then it would be a great scandal. So as a Kshatriya, he made a warrior pact and he killed Vali and he got this. They were in equal terms.
I think he's the wrong guy. I think he should have chosen Vali.
Vali would have readily brought his wife with all his battalion, but no, this is not becoming with a Kshatriya.
Himself, okay. So
you will be humiliated. Rama would have been humiliated if he had gone to the. But they would say should be an equal term.
Okay, very good. Very good. I never thought of that.
I thought the paragraph that you read out, the poem that you read out from your translation, where Ram is breaking Sita's heart by saying that he cannot accept him. There I find another meaning to it. Ram understood that as much as Ram loved Sita, the same amount of love was also from Sita's side. So the time when he, humiliates her, Sita will stop loving her and also save herself from the, the sorrow.
So he does it purposely, so she will start to hate him. So when he sends her away, she will not feel so much pain. Okay.
It's a different interpretation.
It is a different interpretation. I can't say, I can't deny it, but I just don't think Rama's that cool. Really,
you can say the love for Sita, to think that Sita is in so much pain in his absence.
Yes.
At least when they could have been.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that he does it intentionally. So she starts to distance herself from him because she has to go at some point. What poor fellow. I mean, how awful.
No, that is the, should I say, the wisdom of Rama. I don't know what to say, but
I never thought that he was particularly wise.
Because it makes the sense. Otherwise, he came all the way and to show his pride and everything else to maintain his king as dharma. But at the same time, there's an angle of love. Because
very much. No, I could be convinced of this argument. When I was starting to write the book, I was actually quite surprised at myself because I spent, all 25 years of my Ramayana hating Rama, right? And then suddenly this book is coming out like completely the other way. I had not expected it. And I was talking to this feminist publisher, and she was just saying, oh, you should do a book for us, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I'm writing this book about Rama. And like, she was like, are you mad? You think a feminist press can publish a book which supports Rama? She said, I'll be lynched, so I can't publish the book. But it's also very, as feminists or as women in the 21st century, whether we choose to call ourselves feminists or not, our instinctive reaction, and rightly so, is that Rama is deeply problematic. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one more line in Ramcharitmanas. It says, my language, my pronunciation will be little Bengali.
You can hear that already.
It says, Shudra, Gawad, Pashu and Nari. Sab hai Taranaki, Taranaki Nari.
Shudra,
Gawad and Nari. Nari is women.
Yeah, so why
they can be beaten.
And a donkey.
All
should be
beaten. Taranaki. Captured. They can be beaten. So just imagine even Tulsidas could think of putting down a woman.
Yeah.
We worship
the Tulsi text is very, very anxious about women and very, very anxious about Sita. On the business of the Chaya Sita.
See, they gave that we do Lakshmi Puja, but we do the other way around, just the opposite thing as well.
Yeah.
And it's reflected very much in Ramcharitmanas. I stopped reading after
understanding for me a very difficult text to handle. Other comments or questions?
How do you see this ideal, an ideal notion of ideal student, Rama, the ideal man, this notion?
It's very difficult for me to deal with that, yeah.
So, what is style is?
I don't like ideal anything. You know, it's not simply about Rama or student or anything. I think ideal is ideal presupposes that there is one good way and only one good way, and that's really hard for me. I mean, I think that there are many ways to be. There are many ways to be a good person. There are many ways to be a good student. There are many ways to be a good king.
Local tests are articulating in this manner. This particular local test in Telugu.
Maryada Purushottama. You know, I see those words and those ideas, particularly in relation to Ramayana, as sort of huge, big flags of the patriarchy. Why would you deny Rama complexity? If he is the most compelling character in your literary universe, if he is the most compelling character in your religious universe, why would you deny him complexity? Yeah, we don't have problems with Krishna, the way Krishna is in Mahabharata. We don't try to say that Krishna was any kind of Maryada Purushottama. We know that Krishna does some very unexpected things, in order to make the right thing happen. So why has Rama been placed in this straitjacket of idealism? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work for me. But if it works for other people, what can I do?
It's another articulation. It's a process of evolution. From Matsya Avtara, this small Avtara to Krishna. It's Kalki. They're stopping at Krishna. It's the perfect man, how he evolves, look at the thing. In that structure, the Rama given some deficiencies and some minuses.
Of course, I mean, I think that, but you see, all of these things, the Maryada Purushottama, the full idea of the Maryada Purushottama, this evolution of the avatars from Matsya, these are all narratives of a bhakti universe. And Valmiki precedes all of those. And so I think that, many of the things that I say pertain very, very specifically to Valmiki, but the things that other people say back to me actually come from Ramayanas that are not Valmiki. Because most of us know the Ramayana of our own language. Very, very few people, like Sir maybe, have actually read the Sanskrit. And the Sanskrit is emotionally extremely different. Extremely different.
Very beautiful, Gita.
Sorry?
Very beautiful.
It's very, very beautiful. When I was translating Ramayana, which is whatever, 15 years ago, and people would say, what do you do? And like an idiot, I would say, I'm translating Ramayana. I should have just said, I'm reading, I'm writing, I'm thinking, whatever, right? Because the moment you say, I'm translating Ramayana, everybody's like, I know. I was like, you know Ramayana? Yeah, I know. Okay, tell me a story. And I would say, I'm translating Valmiki, right? And I would say, okay, tell me a story. Everybody told me a story that was not in Valmiki. Right? And I would say, well, this is not involving, of course it's involving. It's like, no, this is, from whatever your Ramayana is, whether it's Manas or this or that or whatever. But people didn't even, very often they take their own language Ramayanas are translations of Valmiki. You know, we don't need
Translation and interpretation.
yeah, but they're not. They're completely different stories. In the Telugu Ramayana, Sita will do Telugu things. In the Kannada Ramayana, she will do Kannada things.
In Bengali Ramayana, Ram is green.
And Manusha is all over the Bengali Ramayana, yeah? And Hanuman has children, and he goes and fights Kalanini, and then there's one Mayuri Ravana who lives under the earth, and Hanuman, so he meets his son, when he goes to meet Mayuri Ravana, what son? He's a brahmachari, Haura son. The fish says, I swallowed a drop of your sweat, even the sweat is so important, brahmachari. Yes! But none of this is in Valmiki, you know, which is fine. That's why.
Even the animated movie Hanuman made for children has this aspect of
Hanuman made a movie and animated, that's fantastic.
No, not
Hanuman in the 21st
That's
century.
the one. Animation movie on Hanuman had this particular aspect that.
And once Hanuman leaves, the further east he gets, yeah, once we cross Bengal and the Ramayana stories continue into Southeast Asia, Hanuman is anything but a brahmachari, yeah, he's everything. He has, you know, all kinds of children who confront him and say, "You're my father," and he's like, "Really?" You know, so he becomes very different character. So, I mean, surely the beauty of the Ramayana is that there are 300 Ramayanas, 3,000 Ramayanas, yeah? That we are not telling exactly the same story over and over again. That we are, each time we tell it, we make it our own, yeah? I tell it in this way, somebody else tells it in a different way, the Vietnamese person tells it in one way, the Sri Lankan person tells it in one way, the Jain person tells it in another. In fact, it's the Jain Ramayana that says, "Oh my God, all these Hindus, look at them, they're so superstitious. How can there be a fellow with 10 heads, even if he's a monster?" You know why Ravana has 10 heads? Because he's so rich. He has this beautiful Navratan necklace, which he wears all the time. And his beautiful face is reflected 9 times in each gem. So that's how he has 10 heads. But Hindus are too stupid to understand this. Yeah? We Jains, we have the truth. Yeah? And this is when we sort of started off, yeah? That we're still figuring out how does Ravana have 10 heads? Where do they fit? Right? And the Jains have worked it out. There are really 10 heads. 1 plus 9 reflections, yeah? Because.
Malayalis have a different interpretation.
Sorry?
Malayalis have a different interpretation. You are 10 times very intelligent.
Right.
You are 10 times very intelligent.
Yeah.
You are far much forward. That's how they see you now.
There is one of the articulations such 10 negative feelings of a human being.
Yeah. I was doing a theatre course with certain in Ahmedabad, and we were doing Ramayana because everybody knows the Ramayana story, right? So if you say to somebody, dramatize Ramayana, they can do it. And then they have to write these scripts. And this one kid, and this is before Mani Ratnam's script, he thought of Ravana as a schizophrenic. You have 5 good personalities and 5 bad personalities. Good personality. And I was like, wow, that's beautiful. And he'd written it as a solo piece for an actor, so it actually was quite fantastic.
So, TV Ramayana,
like Valmiki, yeah.
Ramayana has been shown and being telecasted on TV.
Ramayana Sagar.
It's more based on Tulsi Ramayana.
Sorry?
TV Ramayana Sagar version is more based on
Absolutely.
Just Ramayana. It's not Valmiki Ramayana.
As per that, I mean, I was just typing and as per that.
You read Rajaji's Ramayana. You know Rajaji is Ramayana. Rajgopalacharya. That's a beautiful thing. It is very easily readable. Also, yes.
You were saying, the TV Ramayana. Ashok Bankar, just 11 minutes.
According to that particular thing, Ravana was doing tapasya, and in that process of making Lord Shiva happy, he cut his head 10 heads, and that is how Lord Shiva tells him, you will be blessed with 10 heads. And then during the war, when Ram tries to kill him, his head has been struck off, but he is not dead, and that is when Vibhishan tells him it's all in the neighborhood.
In the puppet tradition, we tell Ramayana story, to puppets and various parts of the country. In one particular Tamil tradition of telling Ramayana to puppets, the puppet master is fantastic because, Ravana is Ravana, he's just really big and strong. But battle Ravana is the one with the 10 heads and the 20 arms. So that full, like a Vishwarupa kind of thing, cuts only when he needs it. battle. And battle Rama also has got these many arms, there's only one head. But I thought that was also, wonderful visualization of what it means. That he doesn't need his 10 heads all the time, so he puts them away or something under his collar. His head. But also you have this idea of how alien the idea of Ravana can be. We've all grown up with this idea of Ravana, right? Whatever, I mean, whether we're Hindu or Muslim or Christian or Buddhist or, somewhere we have this idea. And I was teaching Ramayana to American undergraduate students who are maybe just a little bit younger than you are, like maybe 19 or 20. And I was saying, how Hanuman is completely awestruck when he sees Ravana for the first time. He's like, oh my God, this is really a worthy opponent. And Ravana is so beautiful and so charismatic, and you can understand Rama being a little uncomfortable with the idea of his wife being such an attractive man for so long. And so this one American kid said, attractive? He's a monster, and he has 10 heads. And I was like, I guess he does. But when you think of Ravana being like a worthy opponent, you're not thinking of the 10 heads, so Ravana is what you want him to be. If you want him, whichever part of the story you're examining, he sort of morphs to fit that thing.
Yeah, Arshia, he's done it based on?
Me.
Okay.
He says so. In the back of this book that I was the guiding light of his work. Not me, my book.
Time for 2 more questions.
Okay. Yes. If there are 2 more questions.
Last year,
Yeah.
My question is like, if Bharata is ruling Ayodhya so well, why would Rama want to take it back from him?
That's a very good question. Why would you want Rama back as well? If the other king is good enough, why do you want the other guy back? I think because I like to go back to my earlier argument, but he learns how to become king. When you learn how to become king, if you're going to constantly choose Bhakti Dharma over Private Dharma, then he has to take the kingdom back because he's the younger son. It's not appropriate for a younger son to be ruling while the other son is still alive. So I think that's why he takes it back. Another kind of similar question took me a long time to figure out the answer. People would say to me, why is the exile 14 years? Right? In Ramayana and in Mahabharata, why 14? Why not? So somebody told me, because the cells in your body get completely rejuvenated after 7 years. So I was like, okay, but this is 14 years. Then somebody else told me something else. But I think I got it. I think 14 years is a generation. So she asked for the 14-year exile so that people who were
Part of Rama.
would either be dead and the young ones wouldn't care. Right? Like you don't remember Indira Gandhi, I do. What difference does Sandai Gandhi make you? Sandai Gandhi is a meaningless thing, but those things mean something to me. So I think that's also, that's sort of built into your question somewhere. Like after 14 years, what has changed? Or what has not changed? And how do we acknowledge the things that have changed and how do we ignore the things that haven't? But I think he comes back to reclaim the kingdom because he must. And so saying, he says, I come back with 2 armies. And he says to Hanuman, go tell him. And observe his face, right? There's another very fantastic moment when they are, technically, the exile was that he should live outside the city. Right? So they tried to live outside the city, but all these Ayodhya people keep collecting around them. And Rama's like, this is not fair. This sort of violates the spirit of the exile. So they keep moving further and further into the forest. When they settle in Nandigram, Bharata comes to them and he says to Rama, take the kingdom back. Bharata approaches with all his army, right? And all the queens have come, the mothers have come, and the chittar has come, and the elephants and the horses, and Lakshmana hears this incredible noise in the forest. And he climbs up a tree. And he says, Rama, Bharata is coming with his armies. Yeah? Pick up your weapons. We can defeat him. And Rama says, no. He is my gentle Bharata. I know he's not coming to fight me. Yeah? So when you say that Ramayana is about relationships, of course it is about relationships. It's about how we understand each other in a family and how we don't understand each other in a family. So he's got something in Bharata. He trusts him in a way that nobody else does. Yeah.
There's this notion of the war being started by Sita because she refused to go back with Hanuman. And but was it more because she refused to go back with Hanuman and wanted Rama to get her back the right way, or because Rama wanted to prove himself as a...
Well, she chooses not to go back with Hanuman. Just trusted with a monkey. She's the only one who sees him as a monkey. Everywhere they're like, oh, you're a hero, oh, you're a villain, oh, you're a monkey. And she said, you might drop me. Oh, yeah. He's very sweet at that point. Yeah, if I drop you, then you will die. Then Rama is suicide, he will die. He's very terrible, he will die. Then Sita will die. Then other monkeys will die. Then I'll have to die. So I won't die. It's an amazing scene. It's a very, very lovely scene.
Rama is a magician also. He has played all tricks with Sita. And so she does not believe this monkey also is not from Rama's side.
So she's right.
Yes, how can she be true?
No. He gives the story of Rama. He said, if I praise Rama, she will know that I've come from him. But the other lovely thing about Hanuman, every time he does something like this, he says, oh, I have betrayed my essential monkey nature, my kapitwan. Right? So he's also very self-aware as a monkey. So I think she wants Rama to come because it's the ultimate proof of his love for her. He must have, as I was saying, if he had chosen Bali as an ally, Bali would have gone and brought his wife back. Which would be profoundly humiliating to Rama and insulting to him that a monkey can bring your wife back. What were you doing? Rama also knows that he has to go.
She's not a Kshatriya queen, girl. She wants her husband to take revenge and take her back.
How is worthy of her? So.
How do you see the notion of Ramaraj?
Oh my God. The description of Ramaraj in Ramayana, which is primarily in Bharata, is the foundation of Ramaraj is caste. Yeah, that everybody knows who they are and they do what they're supposed to do and they stay in their place. And that's what makes for a prosperous society. I would hate to be kept in my place. So Ramaraj is difficult. I mean, I know that it became very important in Gandhi's thought and all of that. No, it doesn't work for me. Especially, now the idea of Ramaraj is very involved with the idea of Rama being God. So the idea of living in a religious state or a state that is predicated on one kind of religion doesn't suit me. I mean, the last 30 years of our politics have been governed by this. And it's been a very uncomfortable country for many of us to live in. So, doesn't suit me.
One last one.
Yes, sure.
In spite of all odds,
yes.
Ram and Sita are still considered to be ideal couples.
By whom? Not by
Most
me.
of them.
Okay.
I'm talking about the social construct, right?
Okay.
So they say that, Ram, Sita, they were like perfect husband and wife.
Yes.
They abided by the social norms kind of a thing.
Well, some people say, or a lot of people say, that this is a perfect couple. It's not true for all of us. But nonetheless, your question is?
The same. Why is such kind of a notion?
It's the patriarchy. I'm telling you, it's everywhere. It takes strange shapes and forms, but it's the patriarchy. Watch out for it. No, I mean, that's being a little facetious. But no, I mean, I think that for as many people or as many social groups that believe that this is some kind of ideal construct, I think there are equally those that think it's not an ideal construct. It's just that because of the way things are set up, the ones that question Ramayana, the ones that support Ramayana, the ones that are that point out the Ramayana's discomfort are never the voices that have been nurtured. They're never the voices that have been amplified. They're voices that have always been marginalized. And I think that, like with anything else, it's our duty to listen to the margins. We are so firmly in the center. Look at all of us, yeah? Look at the privilege we have. Yeah? We just assume the world is the way we live our lives. We never stop to think that somebody else's world is different from ours, that their life has as much of an internal logic and as much of an aspiration as our own, right? So, but listen to 300 Ramayanas, 400 Ramayanas. By the way, there is a beautiful online project that has just started. It's called Kiski Kahani. And it's to make a digital archive of the diversity of the Ramayana tradition. So not only should you visit that site, but you should add to it as well. It's called Kiski Kahani, and it comes out of a place called Open Space in Pune. And that's where you will find a lot of these places where they're not the ideal couple. I mean, just in the last century, from like the 1920s onwards, you should read the women's literature about Ramayana. In Tamil women are writing, in Telugu women are writing, what is the story? They're telling their own versions of Sita's story, they're telling their own, Ahilya meets Sita, and she says, look what happened to me. Never trust a man. Yeah, and this is like people, now these stories are published. Yeah, a lot of them were banned for a long time. So, there are challenges to the Ramayana out there, we just have to look for them.